Leavenworth Brewery is making great strides in its beer-making process as it moves production to a brand new facility just off the Chumstick Highway. Icicle Brewing Company began brewing in 2010 at its location in downtown, but expanded its production this year and became the first craft brewery in Washington state to cut down on its greenhouse gas emissions by recapturing the carbon dioxide used in its brewing process. I'm Kaitlin Hetterscheidt, and on this episode of the NCWLIFE Magazine, we're taking a peek inside the local business who's breaking barriers and expanding its market reach with every brew.
I'm Pam Brulot, and I own München House and Icicle Brewing Company. And we opened München House. We built it and opened it in 2001, and then we built Icicle Brewing Company in 2010 and opened in 2011.
The Yakima Valley is known as the epicenter of the U.S. hops production because of the desert climate and irrigation provided by the Yakima River, according to USA Hops. In 2015, Washington State produced 70% of the North American commercial hop production with more than 37,000 acres. Many hop farms throughout the state are third or fourth generation family operations, and Pam says hop farming runs deep in her husband Oliver's family, who was born and raised in the Yakima Valley.
So my husband and I, we met at Washington State University, and he was a fifth-generation hop farmer, and they've since retired from farming, but we definitely had a lot of roots in the hop industry and still have a lot of family friends and family in that industry. We just thought it would be a great addition to town to build a brewery, and since we did have a lot of hop connections and that history and passion for the ingredients, and just wanting to bring that to our town and have the freshest beer, that was kind of how we evolved into the beer industry.
Pam says getting a brewery started wasn't easy.
Well, 2009, 2010, it was really tough to kind of get financing, and we spent a lot of time on the business plan. And as you can imagine, like manufacturing a product, it's a ton of equipment and knowledge, and thankfully at that time, Dean Preby, our brewmaster, was finishing at Longview Fiber, and so he was a forestry engineer there, and we knew he was a great home brewer. He had won awards, and so he was a natural fit to kind of partner with us so that we could do the business side and he could do the brewing operations, and he was huge to help us get started and with the planning and recipe development. We do brew ales and lagers, and we definitely wanted to brew lagers because even though they take longer and they're a little more difficult, being in a Bavarian-themed town, we thought it was really important. And actually our water is well suited for brewing the German styles of beer. It's very similar composition. So we use several base malts and with the various yeasts, ale and lager yeasts, it gives us a wide variety for our beer palate. And we do try to brew a beer for basically everyone's taste. We have light, dark, hoppy, not hoppy, smooth. So we try to have a nice array of flavors for our guests.
Pam says the business plan was to follow the demand for their beers while maintaining the values of a small community brewery.
We've had quite a few years to just grow organically. That wasn't our goal, to distribute much or brew a ton. We've just kind of followed the demand, and as our reach has grown and as packaging options change, that's really kind of driven our growth. We're still fairly small. I'd say we're kind of creeping up into more of a regional brewery as we start to extend into Idaho and a little bit beyond Washington, but we're still pretty small and definitely still see ourselves as a small community brewery. The locals are the backbone of our business, and all of us are very involved in our community. It's great that we have the tourist base to support our all that we have in our town, but we definitely value and rely on our local community just to stay in business, and they've been so supportive. We do definitely prioritize giving back to our community.
Pam is serving as the Washington Brewers Guild president, a role that keeps her involved with legislation and building the state brewer community.
Our mission is legislation and education of the brewing industry, and then also brewer networking. And so if there are issues that come up in our state as far legislative-wise, certain bills that we need that can really help our small and independent breweries, we will meet with our legislators. Once a year we have a hill climb that all of the brewers meet with their legislators, and it's great. I love it. I don't know a ton about politics. It's not necessarily my forte, but I've learned a lot, and I see how great it is to have those connections with our representatives.
Around 2011, Pam says the industry saw a large amount of growth. Why so many craft breweries?
Small and independent breweries serve as local gathering places, and I think that need and desire to have a community space where you can actually come try something that's made locally, I think that has really benefited the craft brewing industry. And I also think just the passion and innovation and creativity. I think the public is starting to discover more and more about beer, and especially in Washington, we're the home of the hops, and we also are a huge barley growing industry that's growing in our state, and so we're kind of at the hub of all of these products that go into a locally made product, and I think people really resonate with that.
Icicle Brewing Company completed their new facility in Leavenworth to expand their capabilities and bring in a new canning line. The move also allows the company to make efforts in sustainability, using less packaging by buying grain in bulk to store in silos, installing a CO2 recapture unit, and also expanding their employment opportunities. Icicle Brewing Company also prides itself on using local ingredients in their production, from the Yakima Valley hops to the water from Icicle Creek. We'll take a deeper look at Icicle Brewing's recent sustainability efforts in a bit with brewmaster Dean Priebe. Back at the brewery, Pam says she's honored to have the support of the community to help her keep the business growing and put her in a position to be able to give back.
It's funny because I don't even feel like I work. Because I do enjoy what I do so much. I still love going to München House and having a sausage and coming down here and pairing beers, and I'm constantly trying to learn more. So when I come home at night, I'm just really thankful for the people who support us. We have such great employees, and we couldn't do anything without them. And so even though there is stress and there's growth and change, but we love it, so we're excited. Yeah, my degree was in education. I didn't know I'd be doing sausage and beer, but it's been, I think because I enjoy it so much, it's been really fulfilling. I feel very thankful too that as we grow and have some successes, we're able to share that with our community.
Ever curious about whether a craft brewer is independent or part of a larger corporation? Pam says look for this certified independent craft symbol from the Brewers Association. Coming up next, as promised, we'll sit down with the master behind the brew at Icicle Brewing Company. We'll be right back. Dean Priebe has been brewing beer at Icicle Brewing Company for just over 10 years. He says his start in brewing beer is similar to many who dabble in the craft.
Well, I took the path that many head brewers and brewers in the United States take, in that I started in brewing with home brewing. And through enjoyment of home brewing and learning, it just made me thirsty for more. So I took some classes and did a lot of online learning. I was lucky enough to do an internship at Pike Brewing Company, and that landed me the job here at Icicle Brewing Company. Washington State has over 400 craft breweries, and none of them are the same. They all make different beers, and they all do it in different ways. Here at Icicle Brewing Company, we've had a focus on American-style beers and German-style beers. The German, of course, because of our Leavenworth town's theme, Bavarian theme. Collaboration is very popular amongst craft brewers, especially in Washington State. Every year we do at least one collaboration. Last year we did 2 collaborations, one with Old Schoolhouse Brewery up in Winthrop and another with Wander Brewing Company out in Bellingham. You know, the craft brewing market tends to be pretty localized. Out of those 400 breweries in Washington State, easily 90% of them are brew pubs that only sell to their local neighborhood or area. And so it's a lot easier for craft brewers to get along where they're not necessarily fighting for shelf space. It's kind of a testament to how small Washington breweries are, in that our little brewery here in Leavenworth is one of the top 20 producing breweries in Washington State, and we're really small. So we do try and get our beer into supermarkets and restaurants, but it's not as much of a feeling of competition with the other craft brewers there, more a feeling of camaraderie.
Freebie says he develops recipes in collaboration with other brewers, a team of 5 in addition to a packaging crew of 4. Dean says he helped design the original brewing setup and knew a production space was in the cards for Icicle Brewing down the line.
From the day we opened, we were planning on the next tank or the next piece of equipment we would add. Recently we had a brewer head off to another job after 5 years, and I put together a list of all the changes that happened during his 5 years, and every year we were adding equipment or adding capacity. And at some point we just ran out of room here at the pub and needed another place to add more equipment, and that's what our production brewery is out there. We are able to add more tasting and taproom area here at our existing pub by removing all that equipment that was taking up space. We are putting in a smaller brew system here, so we still will be brewing here. That smaller system will actually allow us to brew new beers every week. With the bigger system, we will brew larger quantities of our more popular, more widely distributed beers, but we should be able to offer a lot more variety here at the pub.
So what about that CO2 recapture unit? Dean says obtaining the equipment was a major breakthrough for the brewery.
Just recently, a small company, Earthly Labs, has created a small CO2 capture equipment for brewers our size. It's very exciting. It's something that I've been watching since even before I got into commercial brewing, which is the ability to capture CO2. When you are fermenting beer, yeast is converting sugars to primarily alcohol and CO2, and that CO2 comes off of your vessel and just goes into the air. And yet we use CO2 in the cellaring and packaging process for carbonation, for pushing beer, for packaging beer in a way that keeps it fresh. And we actually have to buy that CO2. So it seems ridiculous that we are creating tons of CO2 and then we're buying it. This way we are able to actually capture the CO2 that we create and reuse it, which seems simple, but it's a pretty complicated process, and for the last few decades it's only been the largest brewers with lots and lots of money that have been able to afford these large-scale pieces of equipment. We are the first ones in Washington State doing this.
The new facility brings a safer work environment, more lab space to ensure quality, while also increasing the quantity. These changes will help Icicle expand their distribution.
Well, for the first couple years, we were only in Leavenworth, and we distributed the beer ourselves here. But after that, we signed on with a distributor, and for the next 5 or so years, our beer was distributed throughout eastern Washington. And it was quite a source of Difficulty for all the tourists from Western Washington, Seattle, that they couldn't get our beer in Western Washington, only in Eastern Washington. But a couple of years ago, we started distributing our beer in Western Washington also, and in the panhandle of Idaho. Now with our new production brewery, we've got plans to expand our distribution to Alaska and to the rest of Idaho and to all of Washington State.
Coming up next, we'll talk shop with one of the brewers at Icicle Brewing Company and learn how the industry has evolved over the years. Also, you'll find out how you can get a chance to check out the new production facility at an upcoming community event. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the NCWLIFE Magazine. To close out this episode, we're sitting down with Holly Brieger, a brewer at Icicle Brewing Company who took her career from baking to brewing. Holly is originally from Twisp and moved to Leavenworth after graduating from college in Seattle.
I didn't quite want to be as rural as the Met House, so Leavenworth seemed like a good compromise for me. I guess I really like how hands-on it is. It's really physical. I always like making something with my hands, I guess. My job before this was I worked at a bakery in Kashmir and pretty quickly ended up on the production side of things, so I kind of always want to know more about the product I'm selling and if I can make it myself. But the baking schedule was a little bit tough for me and I didn't really know where I was going to go with it. There's a lot of similarities. You're dealing with a food product, you're dealing with temperatures, and I feel like each day your brew can be a little different depending on the weather outside, and how hot your mash ends up being can vary on how humid it is, and baked items can often be the same. Coming to work here seemed like a natural place for me to be drawn to. I guess I always kind of wondered in the back of my head if I'd be capable of doing it, and then the opportunity arose and I felt like I had to take it, and I was really scared and I was like, I don't know if I should. I'm very much like a stay in your comfort zone type of person, so it was a pretty big step outside of my wheelhouse to even try it, but I guess I wanted to continue to push myself and take advantage of an opportunity to learn on the job. I'm really glad I took it, for sure. There was moments where there were some tears and maybe some questioning, but yeah, I'm glad that I'm where I'm at today.
Working with Icicle Brewing for the last 4 years, Holly says she transitioned to the production side of the business nearly 2 years ago.
I always had an interest in craft beer and really liked it, and the Icicle drew me as a company, so I started working in the tap room, and then I made friends with the brewers here because all of our brewing was just downstairs here. Got to know them and kind of got more and more interested in what they were doing and if it was potentially possible for me to do it. I remember I went to a Fresh Hop Festival last year and talked to one of the brewers there, and he was like, oh, it's going to take at least a year before you feel remotely comfortable. And I feel like he was right. It was a big learning curve, and I definitely did not feel like I knew what I was doing at all in the beginning, but I just tried to be honest about what I knew and didn't know and where I needed help.
Falling into her routine, Holly says with the help of the other brewers, she's been able to learn on the job and getting more comfortable with the process. And now she's working in a new facility too.
We work 10-hour days, so we do kind of 4 10s a week. So they're longer days, but you adjust pretty quickly. It's kind of routine. It's a little different every day, but mostly the same. You kind of just get your bearings when you get there, get your brew sheet figured out, figure out what you're making, get your hops measured out, kind of figure out what all your strike temp is going to be. You're kind of looking for all your numbers on your recipe and sort of what you're going to do. So for me, it's getting kind of a game plan, the first hour, and then it's just getting the grain out of the mash tun, which is just fast and furious because we do 2 brews a day. I usually do the second brew, so you got to empty the mash tun from the first brew to get ready for yours. Get it heated up, get it ready to go, and then start mashing in. And then once you're mashed in, it's kind of just following the system all the way through. You kind of got your wort in process, and all those enzymes are being converted, and from there you just gotta push it through the system, get it boiling, get your hops in it, finish all your recipe ingredients, and get it knocked out. I'm really excited for our pilot system. It'll be really neat to see just some different specialty batches and a little bit more freedom on just different beers we can make. It's been really wild to watch it change as quickly as it has, but it's been pretty neat to be a part of and get to go along through the whole process. I mean, it's really nice to have our own space. It's a nice big building. It has a bunch of windows, a lot more light, but it's definitely it's a new transition not having the tap room and all being in one building. So we'll be excited to have the pilot system and then kind of still have some time just getting to more work together as a team. I think people will start to see some different beers and newer things coming down the line, and pretty cool that we got our new rotary canner, so a lot more cans and different styles in cans, and I'm just excited to keep brewing, really. I did cellar work for kind of the first year and then started brewing, I think, last fall. So I'm just now feeling like I'm really hitting my stride with brewing and getting comfortable with that. So it'll be good for me to, I guess, just keep practicing brewing and getting more confident in that. And then hopefully I'll get to do some of the pilot brews and some of the smaller stuff and maybe come up with some recipes of my own at some point. That's a whole nother thing to learn that I don't even remotely know yet. And there are educational programs out there, so I've definitely thought about looking into those just to continue to learn. And I guess that's what I like about the job, is that you can just continually keep learning at it. Like, you're never done learning the process. It's gonna always change, and there's always gonna be new beer styles to learn about, and that's what excites me, I guess.
Did you know the oldest known record of beer brewing comes from ancient Egypt, and it was made and sold almost entirely by women? This, according to an article by The Atlantic, a shift from a female to male-dominated industry occurred in the United States when the country went from an agricultural-based economy to industrial. Holly says while she's the only female on the production side of Icicle Brewing, she didn't feel intimidated and received nothing but support from her fellow brewers.
I worked with a lot of women at this brewery, but none on the brew floor, and it's a pretty small group. It was only 4 guys down there when I started, so I got one of the positions of the men that left. So there's only 3 men that I'm really working with, on the brew floor. Dean included, I guess, so 4. But they were all really supportive. I don't think I even would have really followed through with applying without their support. So it's just been really encouraging and a good way to learn.
Pam added that she's seen a significant shift in diversity in the industry.
It definitely is, I would say, still a male-dominated industry, but I feel like as a female in the beer industry, there is so much support, and I feel like, no matter whether you're female or male, we are a real tight community. There's the Pink Boots Society, which is a national organization. We also have local branches, and that's a great way for females in the industry to stay connected. That's an organization that is comprised of any female who earns their living through the beer industry. When I went to my first craft brewers conference, I went to the Pink Boots meeting, and there were maybe 50 people there. And then 8 or 9 years later, there's 2,000. It's amazing, the growth, because there are more and more female brewers. It's really changed the perception that it's an industry for really anyone. There's a real focus even at the national level at the Brewers Association. They now have a diversity ambassador, which I think brings awareness to the importance of diversity in the brewing industry. You need all walks of life to, because everyone is different, whether they're male, female, or different races and backgrounds, and I've seen it, especially even in our tap room and at München House. We have both of our managers are females, and I think it gives a more complete picture when you're running a business. It's nice to have all different voices.
With the company continuing to grow and evolve, they're inviting the community to a grand opening at the new brewing facility on Thursday, June 13th, with live music, food, beer and beverages, of course, along with games and tours of the facility. The event runs from noon to 9 and is family-friendly. Keeping in line with the company's values in supporting the community, 100% of the proceeds from the food and beer sales will benefit the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance. For more information on this event, visit the brewery's Facebook page. That wraps it up for this week's NCWLIFE Magazine. If you have a question on this episode or you have your own magazine idea you'd like to pass along, contact me, Kaitlin Hetterscheidt at kaitlin@ncwlife.com.